This episode is brought to you by Rohirrim's Horse Jerky, the finest horse jerky in all the southern kingdoms.
Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Podcast Assemble, the show where you come for your rambling geeky download. My name's Tommy, and I am delighted, as always, to be joined by my friend and co-host from across the pond. It's our resident rider of Rohan of the pod, DL. How are you?
I'm good, bro. I'm good. We went back to our youth with this one. Some animated film.
Well,
enjoyment.
all the things I wanted in 2005.
Yeah, for sure. Especially how I saw the movie.
Yeah.
It felt very 2005.
I saw your wife's Instagram post of this, and I was like, "Is that how he's seeing the Riders of Rohan movie? Like, what?
Could you actually see what was happening in the video?
Yeah, tell the listeners what you did.
Has anybody been to like Disneyland and been to like what's that Star Wars ride? There's a famous one there. I forget what it's called, but it's basically like an interactive video experience where like the seats are all moving. There's like vibe. It's like you're
brilliant.
I could basically, if I could describe it, to be like a rumble pack.
You think you're on a roller coaster?
Yeah, it'd be a rumble pack if it was your seat. You know what I mean? Like, and you were just like interactive.
You're in a massage chair that's a bit too active.
Yeah, more than a massage chair. It's like got a mind of its own. So I booked tickets. The only place in the freaking all of London that had these tickets, there was like maybe two, and one that was close to me, not any of my local neighbor. I basically bought a movie ticket membership so I wouldn't have to go far. And for this movie, I had to go all the way to the city to go see it. I couldn't go to any of my local places. There's like 2 or 3 near me. None of them were showing it. So we get there. I buy 4DX. I'm like, oh, this is just going to be really great screen quality, apparently. And it was so much more. The screen quality was fine. But there was like...
So I've never done 4DX before, but that looked fucking hilarious.
Had you heard of it, though? I didn't even know about it. I was like, oh, maybe this is like the gold class of London. And it was like a roller coaster, dude. Like you go in, the seats, my first indicator was the seats looked kind of weird. I was like, why are these like sports car seats?
Why am I in Gran Turismo all of a sudden?
Like, why do they look waterproof? And why does it look like I'm entering a sports car?
Waterproof?
Like, and then I sit down and I look at there's like a button on it. It says water on or off. I was like, oh, we have made a mistake. Like as soon as I saw the button,
what
turns off the water, I was like, oh God. So I turned mine off. I turned Miguel's off. I turned the one next to us off because I was like, I don't even want like residual splash.
Don't want to be in the splash zone.
Yeah. And then at one point, like Gail managed to turn it back on, like as a joke. And like halfway through the movie, like I like just fully squirted out of my seat. And
wait, was there a lot of water? Like how much? Like I'm imagining like Shamu here.
Nah, it's just more just like any amount of water splashing in your comfortable movie viewing experience is way too much water. You know what I mean? Like
brilliant.
This isn't like, oh, I'm gonna let you stroll to the pub, like a bit of rain. Oh, I'll deal with it. Like no, you're comfy. You're like trying to watch a movie. And then like all of a sudden you're just like wet and there's no getting out of being wet. You can't leave. You're in the theater watching the movie.
Damp.
Yeah, so it's just like really unfortunate.
Amazing.
And I don't know why anyone would pay extra for this movie viewing experience, but I did. So
wait, how much extra was it? Like how much?
Know,
how much a regular ticket versus how much?
I can't imagine it. I think a regular ticket would be like anywhere between like 17 to 20 pounds, and these were like 25.
Yeah. Okay, right. So it's not like you're paying like £40 to get.
No, but it's just like
I can help you with that. I'll just throw.
They
water
should be
at you.
paying me. Yeah, like I think is my point. Anyway, the seats like move around, like it's like they're like interact. It's like the Indiana Jones ride at Disneyland, but you're watching a movie. That's what it is. That's like the best explanation.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right. I think there's a Harry Potter one at Universal Studios.
Yeah.
For anyone who hasn't guessed yet, we're talking about the Lord of the Rings, the War for the Rohirrim movie today, which DL saw in 4D glory, I suppose.
4DX, which like isn't like a better 3D. It's just they have fog machines. They have what's the epileptic shit where like the lights flash?
Oh, really? So that's strobe lights.
They have that shit going on. That strobe lights randomly. I was like, dude, this is so extra.
My viewing experience was very different. Like totally. Yeah. Were there a lot of people in the cinema?
There's probably half filled, which was maybe a little less than half. Yeah. Less than half. More
Okay,
like
all
a
right.
third.
So originally when I was looking for it, so I was working, like it was my last week of work. My mum's here from the UK, so I'm taking a bit of time off. But I got there and my cinema was empty. And like, I didn't even realize it was playing at that cinema. I thought I had to go like a 30-minute drive away to watch this goddamn movie. And then I get in there and it's completely empty. I was like, holy shit, am I going to sit here on my own for like 2 hours? And then like one dude snuck in the back and there was a group of like lads all in front of me who were all like bantering and being silly. But I was like, this is such a wild experience. Like no one, it just wasn't on anywhere for the first like 2 days of trying. So like you got lucky. You got lucky getting water in the face.
I'm surprised. I guess so. I'm surprised that I thought this was like a major release, but apparently not.
I thought it was going to be 2. I wonder if if it wasn't tracking particularly well and they maybe pulled it from cinemas. I haven't actually looked at that.
All I know is I did see it eventually. I got there and we saw it, and it was a ride.
Well, let's get to that, shall we?
It was a tough go. Yeah.
How have you been, mate? By the way, what's been happening?
What's been happening, man?
You've been sick.
So I was sick. I did the old, you think you're taking the NyQuil, you actually take the DayQuil with caffeine at 8 p.m. at night. So that didn't help my sickness because I stayed up all night and then into a conference all day and then into a concert. So that got me really ill after that.
Really helped.
Yeah, as it would. Saw Kygo, it was good. It was a theater. It was like a world tour style fucking venue.
Yeah, right.
And Kygo, the lizard looking motherfucker, like he's not a singer himself. He is a DJ, and he's good at producing really catchy, good, fun trop house tunes. But if you're seeing his world tour, you're like, what is he gonna do? He's just gonna press play. He brought out he played piano. He played piano on a bunch of stuff. He had like an orchestra. He brought out some fucking dope live vocalists. Every vocalist was like live, not lip syncing, singing these really catchy songs. So like there were some pretty famous people there. I forget their names, but they all had millions of followers. I don't really know them, but they were really great live. So it was a fun show. Can't complain. For the amount of cost, it was good value.
Good chat. If I wanted to find these people, I cannot.
Yeah. Well, I mean, go look up Kygo's World Tour. You know who they are. He brought out famous singers that were dope. Yeah. What do you want me to say? They were all white though. Every single one was white.
Oh, so is Kygo a racist? Is that the point of this conversation?
I'm just like, but surely there was a good black singer. They're all white dudes. Anyway, go ahead.
They're better singers. Yeah. Bonobo does that really well as well. I don't know. Have you ever seen a Bonobo set? I
feel like Bonobo's a very different show than.
Totally.
I have seen it. Well,
he goes one of two ways. It's either he does like a really awesome DJ set where he has all of his own tracks and he brings in new stuff you've definitely never heard before, like a proper DJ set, or he does these awesome live band breakdowns of his tracks. So like he'll bring his whole band with him and they'll basically do all of his latest album and some of his older tracks and break them down, and it's just so good, man. I bloody love seeing him live. He's no Kygo though.
I mean, they're very different. Yeah, that was good. So I did that. What about you? Anything from your neck of the woods?
Like I say, my mother's over from the UK, which is always a delight. So, like trying to see as much of her as possible. I've got her here for about 3 weeks. So, the wholesome content that our listeners really want to hear about. So just like spending time with her, spending time going to nice restaurants, doing all the stuff you want to do. And man, the weather's really kicking it here. Like it is hot right now. You can't tell today. It's a little overcast right now, but Jesus, it was like, I feel like Sydney's turned into a bit tropical these days. So like the weather tends to go like hot, and then it'll have a deluge downpour for like 2 days. Then it'll go hot again. Don't know why I had to say it like that, but hot. That's
always the way it is. It's always a bit tropical like that.
Well, it's only more like that in the last 5 or 10 years, I'd say. It never, like when I came here 10 years ago, it wasn't like that. It was just freaking hot. So she got really lucky, man. It was absolute deluge for like the 3 days leading up to her getting here. And then she got here and it's like snap back to reality. So we've had sun like the last 3 days. It's been so nice. But other than that, man, it's just been chilling away. I've finished work for the year. I'm buzzing, man. I just need a break. You know when you're like, it's time. My mental health really needs it right now.
That's good, man. I'm glad you're gonna get that for yourself.
Downtime. That's what everybody needs.
Enjoy that.
Thank you, sir. And if anybody else would like to enjoy our downtime, you could start by giving us a 5-star review. That would be really helpful for us. That would really help with my relaxation, knowing that we had more 5-star reviews in the world.
As you do.
You can do that in your podcast capture of choice right there. I know, DL, you've already stolen someone's phone and given us 5 stars in the last couple of days. You went to a Kygo gig. You must have been taking everyone's phones.
Yeah, a bunch of guys around me. They all rated it. Don't you know?
Brilliant. Guys, if you want to hear us carry on badge about our weeks, feel free. There'll be time codes in the description, as always, supplied by Mr. Matthew Bliss of mbpod.com. You know how to help us with algorithms and stuff. We appreciate you long time. DL, what have you been up to, buddy?
I've been steadily going along with my James Islington audiobook.
Yeah, tell me about that. How's that going? Because you weren't sure last time.
Not well, because I barely listened to it, because I was like, you know what?
Right.
I like the audiobook reader. I don't really like that much.
Oh, really? Okay.
You know, the guy reading the audio. So that's a tough one.
That sucks.
Not to mention, I had an extra credit, and I was like, this just makes me want to listen to the hierarchy one again. So I ended up just downloading that.
Stop.
I can like work to an audio, like a book I've already read. Like,
okay,
I can't do it to something I haven't, like where it's new, but something I already know, I can work to it. So I was doing a lot of like prospecting. And so I was listening to the one I already knew, and I basically burned through the entire Will of the Many audiobook over the last like 2 weeks.
Really?
Just like at gym or whatever. So instead of reading his other one, I read his good one. He just did such improvement on that next book. But
I need to reread it, to be fair.
I got a lot more out of it. Well, the new one's coming, dude. I think it's in editing right now. I bet it'll release early next year.
Sick.
But I got a lot out of the re-listen, I should say. There's like a lot of hints of what's to come, I think. More so than I would have expected. Yeah.
Like what, for example?
Like pretty clearly the Amissa girl that he's like friends with, spoilers for The Will of the Many, pretty clearly she from the dot is obviously like a Viridian spy.
Right.
For like for like it's like the headmaster's spy on Viz. And she obviously catches feelings over the course of doing that. And there's a couple of like
interesting, really
clear indicators where it's like she like halfway through the book where she's like, she looked at me with a like love, something, guilt, period. And it's like, oh, duh. Like now I know that.
I kind of thought that anyway at the time. I kind of thought it was that competing emotions within her while it was happening.
Yeah, I think some people would have caught it. And like Ulkisaur, the Ulcosaurus Rex.
Is that how you say it?
Ulcosaurus Rex. I think it's Ulkisaur, but I like to call him Ulcosaurus Rex. Or Ulcosaurus for short.
You know I love dinosaurs. Don't bring two of my favorite things together in one sentence.
The names in this one, Sea-Roar, Ulcascore, it's like they're not.
Oh
really.
My god.
But he warns Viz pretty early on that he should be careful of her. But I didn't like think anything of it, to be honest. Like maybe I was the slow one there. But there's that. There's quite clearly, you know, Viridius and Sirar like are probably more like friends. And there's also some other things where I'm like,
Sirar, is that how you say it? Is that like how it's said in the book?
That's how they say it in the audiobook. That's they say Sirar.
Really?
Yeah, it's really weird.
That is crazy. I would never have put two and two together on that.
Yeah, and then a lot of the like stuff about like Lucidium and Obidium and like all like when you obviously having known how it ends now, you can read it and it makes a little more sense, and so you can kind of guess where the story's going to go a bit more.
Yeah, right.
There's a bunch of hints for sure.
I gotta say that was the bit that confused me while reading it. So obviously,
it's 100% meant to. Yeah.
Yeah. I fully appreciate. I fully appreciate you're not supposed to understand a lot of it, but like I didn't understand like to be honest with you, on a first read there was a lot of things that are supposed to confuse you in this book. I think. And I think there's a lot of pieces of the puzzle that really you're not even supposed to understand until you've finished it. So I think it must have a lot of reread value.
It does. And like, I like it because like Viz doesn't know. So you're not supposed to know, which is like pretty cool. Right. Actually, I actually really like, I think that this is like a really, really good book. There's only one thing that I'm like, I got hung up on the re-listen was like the amount of times the fucking wolf thing saves him.
Oh my God.
Like, that was a bit over. Like
Deus
that was the
Wolf,
one flaw of the book. Like the wolves did like 3 different fucking. He was the MVP.
He's the only thing that was helping him. No one else was.
Yeah, 3 to 4 times he fucking helped him. Anyway, so that was cool. And there's also like a bunch of like really clear foreshadowing around like military and what they're doing with the Angus. When you go back, you're like, oh, this is pretty clearly that he was indicating some hints here, and you would never really get it unless you read it, but like you might have been able to. And like that's when, it's a sign of I think a good foreshadowing. So I really enjoyed it.
That's interesting.
I'm super excited for the next one. And I just think it's really inspiring to see somebody like Islington write 3 books, one of which I cannot stand so far.
Trash.
And then see him like, 2 books later and like have what I think might be like a top 10, top 5 fantasy book for me.
Interesting. I think friend of the show Kyle has been trying to read the what are they called, the Lycanium trilogy as well. I think he's having a hard time too. So I mean, people like them, like you've said before. Like, on Goodreads, they've got a lot of positive reviews. So I don't see why I wouldn't give it a go. At the same time, if it's this recommendation from you that it's like it's so difficult to get into, it might take time.
I've read that it gets way better towards the end. And I've read that like the main thing that people criticize him for is like the biggest area that he stepped up is like his peripheral characters like feel much more real and fleshed out.
Right.
Whereas in this one, they're all kind of bland. But apparently the plot, like the twists, there's some crazy twists that like
he loves a crazy twist.
That's tie the story together really well. But like I'm just not sure I can get through 3 massive books to like have that payoff. Like I just don't have that kind of time these days.
Yeah, fair enough. If you listen to it audiobook wise.
Yeah, they say the plot is what does it. Sorry.
No, I get it. If you listen to it audiobook wise, there's I don't know. It's a tough one, man, because his like you say, his latest book is it's up there for me. It's sort of I know when my uncle was growing up, he was obsessed with Lord of the Rings. And him and his friends would sit and they would debate it. They would talk about different theories and they'd talk about the expanded lore and stuff. This is pre-internet, obviously. Like this is fucking like, I don't know. I'm talking maybe the 70s here. So
that's true passion.
True passion. Pre being able to actually just look it up on ChatGPT in 5 seconds. But like, I feel like this could be one of those books that we will do a similar thing with. We are sitting, we are debating it, we are thinking about what the future of this book holds and theories, and it would be interesting if he released some mid-quel things as well to expand the world a little bit, to expand a bit more on it. Like Tolkien's appendices, for example. I haven't seen anything, but he very well might have done. It could be one of those books for us. We could still be talking about this in 10 years' time. It has a lot of potential, especially if we get him on the podcast. I think you need to get drunk again and try again.
I was listening to another podcast on this one because I was like, I want to hear some theories. And there's another podcast that did this book, and they tried, like, they basically apparently reached out to him as well and got denied. Oh, really? So he's just not taking many. He's not taking. Well, I mean, if he's many takers,
you know what we want to do? We want to be on him now, because if he's going to release that book in the new year, he's going to want to be doing press for it. So let's stay on him for our listener. We appreciate you listening. Thank you very much for sticking around.
We'll do. I'll stay on him. But I have one actually ask of our listeners. I'm trying to like read more like fiction that's more almost like spy thriller, but like not the traditional crappy Tom Clancy every story is the same kind of genre. Because I'm looking to get inspired by something like almost like of a more political thriller. So if anybody has any recommendations, I'm trying to read some there to get some inspiration. That's more for the listeners.
That is a fabulous segue into send us anything, guys. Send us memes, send us news, send us reviews, send us to @podcastassemble on Instagram or thepodcastassemble@gmail.com. Send us things you recommend we watch as well. DL's has once again recommended The Will of the Many. I know we've done it a lot of times at this point.
Nothing else to recommend. That's so sad.
Keep going with it. I'll tell you one thing I quickly do. Well, I'll do very quick things. I don't know. It's morning here. I'm tired. 2 things that one I would recommend and one I wouldn't. So I started to watch a movie. It's a brand new movie on Amazon. It's called Jackpot. It has John Cena. It's got Aquafina. I kind of like the premise, and it looks silly. And I really like John Cena ever since like Peacemaker. He's been doing some really fun, silly stuff. The idea of the movie is that it's set in the near future. There's this grand lottery where the whole of the US effectively has been through a recession. All of the governments and all of the people effectively, if you're not a billionaire, you're poor. And what happens is if you enter the lottery, you have to stay alive for 24 hours till sundown, or whatever it is, 12 hours till sundown. Otherwise, if somebody kills you before you can claim your jackpot after 12 hours, they win the whole jackpot. So it's a bit like a heist movie. It's a bit like I'm trying to
Purge.
think of something to liken it to. Imagine The Purge, but kind of funny. John Cena is like a consultant who comes in and tries to help her stay alive. It's funny. You know what? I turned it off. I watched 20 minutes. I really like John Cena in it. There is just something about Aquafina I do not find funny at all. I don't know what it is. I just don't find her interesting. So, like, I kind of like the John Cena parts, but she is the main lead in this, and I turned it off, man. I couldn't watch it. Like, I'm sure it gets better. No, I can't say that. I can't recommend that.
I find these ones that are like America, but everyone's a billionaire, and they're all so like extreme, like The Purge. Like surely there's a middle. Surely like this all falls apart in a way that's a little bit more believable. You know,
surely
in between, like it becomes The Purge and like Utopia. Like that, like that's the movie I want to see. That's what I'm trying to actually write. That's the movie I want to see. I want to see like where they like almost like Civil War, but like more involved in like what it looked like when we got there and the lead up and how and like the intriguing like in the war room conversations as these things were happening and as there were revolts or whatever. I don't know. You get my point. But like John Cena being the consultant for, I guess maybe it's meant to be a dark comedy, so it's not meant to be realistic. But
it's not that dark. I can tell you that right now. It's got some scenes. There's a very funny scene where who's the actor who plays Stifler? I always forget. I always say his name wrong. Sean Scott Williams or something gets killed at the very beginning. Very funny. Very funny watching Stifler get murdered. I enjoyed that a lot. But other than that, like it's not that great. But another thing I did watch that I probably would recommend very quickly is. I'm going to start a sort of semi-new segment for the show, which is stuff I've watched that my partner's watching, and I've just sort of been in the room.
Another one of those.
So this can go one of two ways. It's either going to be something that I enjoyed or something that I didn't enjoy. And this one I actually quite enjoyed. So the partner started watching, and you know what, Netflix hypes up certain shows and stuff. It's called Monsters, and it's about the Menendez brothers. Do you know about those two guys?
No, I don't, to be fair, but I think I've seen the thumbnail.
Yeah, you'll have definitely seen the thumbnail. Netflix pushed it real hard. It's about two brothers who killed their parents, basically. No one knows whether it's because they're psychopaths. No one knows if they did it because their parents were horrible to them growing up, or potentially raped them and stuff. It's interesting, and it kind of dives a little bit in a kind of Netflixy docudrama-y way. It's not really a docudrama, it's just a recreation, really, of the gray areas of this case. Like no one knows. So even them, like one of them was an idiot and was telling a girl that he was trying to hook up with how much of it could have been bullshit and how much of it could have been real. So like I kind of liked it. It was enjoyable. It had who plays Anton Chigurh in No Country for Old Men?
Anton Chigurh? You mean the
who's the bad guy in Javier Bardem? It had Javier Bardem in it, for God's sake. I was like, this must have something. Yep. Bring it back, baby. So I ended up not just peripherally watching this. I ended up actually watching the whole thing with it, and I quite enjoyed it for a silly Netflix thing.
Glad to hear it. That's exciting.
Bring back Barnos.
Yeah, I watched The Christmas Chronicles with Kurt Russell because we couldn't come up with a Christmas movie.
Oh.
And so we just Googled one, and there was a Netflix one with Kurt Russell as Santa. I was like, I'll try that. Why not? Put it on in the background.
What's The Christmas Chronicles about? I've never even heard of it.
I mean, it's just a Christmas. You know how Netflix every year probably releases like 2 or 3 Christmas movies just to hit the category.
Right.
Because people are going to search. I was exactly what they were. I did exactly what they were hoping for.
Yes.
And watched this. And Gail enjoyed it and we hung out, but I can't necessarily say it's a top 5 Christmas movie for me. It's probably not top 10. It's
what are your top 5 Christmas movies, just out of interest?
I don't know, probably the Home Alones 1 and 2. I don't. A Christmas Carol always had a good place in my heart for a Christmas.
The Muppets version?
But but there was no like definitive movie version. I just saw it in like plays so much growing up.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I get you.
The Muppet version I do remember, and I've wanted to rewatch, but Gail's just like so against it. She's like, I hate the Muppets.
What?
I'm like, what did they do to you? Like, why won't you watch this? Yeah,
here's a trauma that we need to hear about.
Why can't we watch the Muppet Christmas Carol? Like, this is important to me. Anyway,
just generally, she says no to Muppets.
Yeah, she's against the Muppets. Not a fan.
What? That is wild. Maybe Big Bird touched her.
I don't know. It's fucked up though. And so that.
Yeah, I meant mentally. My God, that sounded terrible. I'm not saying that Big Bird is Jeffrey Epstein. That's not what I'm saying.
What else? What are the other big ones? I don't know. There are Die Hard in there, I guess, but I probably wouldn't.
Die Hard's my Christmas. I love a bit of Love Actually. You know me. I love a bit of that.
Yeah, Love Actually is good.
I love like a Bad Santa. Stuff like that as well. Like throwing in a random one too.
Bad Santa's great. I was gonna say that or Elf. I think Elf's a bit overrated though.
Me too.
Yeah, I think that
I'm so with you on that.
What a Christmas Story is a good one. You ever heard? That's a very American one though. You never seen that one?
I haven't seen that one.
Yeah, it's like a Midwest kid growing up. It's a good Christmas story.
What's the one?
As the name
My partner,
suggests.
my partner loves The Holiday. Do you know with Jack Black, Jude
Yeah,
Law?
great one. I would say that's in my top 5.
She loves that.
I don't know which
so
one I have to cut out, but
I've seen it. I don't. I'm okay. It's fine. Like it's not.
I enjoy that movie. It's like
Okay.
cute and maybe more top 10, not top 5, but.
Well, yeah, I think top 5. You probably. I wouldn't put both the Home Alones in my top 5. I have
What?
this. I don't know if it's a
What?
spicy take, but I think Home Alone 2 is better than Home Alone 1.
No, it is, but they're both good.
No, it is. Just because Donald Trump makes a random appearance at one point.
Yeah. Doesn't he just like shake his hand?
Yeah, literally.
He's like, hey, buddy. Yeah.
Classic Donald Trump. Guys, as we said before, if there's anything you recommend we watch or listen to or read, we love when you recommend reading. Dre asks for recommendation. Hit us up. As again, you can find us at Podcast Assemble on Instagram or thepodcastassemble@gmail.com or our website, www.podcastassemble.com. All our details are there. Send us memes, send us news, send us reviews. We love it when you do. DL.
Yes, sir.
You want to preface that main topic, big guy?
It's the main topic theme.
The main topic this week, to my wife's chagrin, is the War of Rohirrim, an animated Lord of the Rings experience.
Wait, just 1 second. How did you preface this to her when you were taken to see it, or did you just not? Did you say like, "Oh, we're going to the cinema"?
I said it's a Lord of the Rings movie, a standalone Lord of the Rings movie. I did not tell her that she was going to get squirted in the face and be watching an animated film. So both of those things were surprises for her.
That's 2 big surprises. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, pretty big, shocking surprises. So, but we got through it anyway. That's what we're watching today. It is a side story. Really, just what do you want to say about it? I mean, it's a story. I don't want to spoil anything, but it's a story set in the war, set in the Rohan. Is that the kingdom? The kingdom of Rohan.
Yes.
Follows one of the first kings of Rohan.
200 years before Bilbo Baggins found the One Ring.
Oh, is it? I didn't even know that.
Whole story kicked off. Do you want to do a stupid plot summary before we get into it?
Yeah, sure. Anime Horse Lord is prideful. Arya Stark saves the day. Plus, a poor man's helm's deep scene. And I never thought I'd say this. Not enough orcs.
Ooh, I like that. I like that.
That's my summary. It's my dumb summary.
It's very interesting that you went the route of a Game of Thrones reference, because there was so much of this that felt Thronesian to me, like from the TV show, as in like taking directly from it. And mine even includes one too. So mine is Deus Ex Horse Machina. Evil Jon Snow is a petulant child while his father can't take a punch.
Yeah, at all. Which
all.
is not my Ned Stark. For sure.
What a coward. Not my Ned Stark. All right, so this is from director Kenji Kamiyama, who has done a bunch of stuff, man. He's a lot of TV stuff, a lot of Netflix, Ultraman. He did a Blade Runner spin-off called Black Lotus for Amazon. He did a lot of Ghost in the Shell stuff, but like Amazon anime isn't really my forte. I'm not going to lie to you. I've actually started watching a fair bit more of it recently. So I started with some of the classics, and I've been trying to work through and get more into it. So when new stuff comes out, I can, really appreciate it more. But I don't know, man. Like the more I watch anime, I find that I like really specific elements of it, but I'm never like just blown away by all of it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I just feel like I haven't watched enough of like the core stuff to like give it a judgment.
Well, I mean, I watched Akira recently, which is like the OG, which is the one everyone states as like and it is fucking amazing. And there are a lot of things in that this movie doesn't do that. I mean, I feel like if that's your blueprint, it's a high bar to get over, and I feel like this movie didn't quite make the high bar.
Yeah, to me, it's just like I couldn't say anything about yes or no about anime, but what I will say is this movie was like, meh.
Yeah,
I don't.
That's a great way of putting it.
I don't mind that it exists. To be honest, though, the plot is just fairly simple.
Yeah. I mean, like, well, let's talk about it, because I think it's got a good voice cast. Brian Cox as Helm. We'll talk about him in a little bit as well. Gaia Wise as Hera, who's sort of the key person, and a lot of people I don't really know, but like the key characters we're looking. Oh, sorry, Miranda Otto came back as Eowyn to do the voiceover, which is a thing. But like a lot of key characters like Wolf, Olwyn, and Freka, they're all very well acted by their respective actors, and not people who've been in a huge amount of stuff. So I like that they took a bit of a big swing on some of these different voice casts. We do, though, DL, have what a segment that I like to bring back every now and again, only when we find something worth bringing back. And it's Joofy IMDb picture, everybody. So what we do is we talk about an IMDb picture that is, well, goofy, let's be perfectly honest. One that I'm like, why is this your introduction to the world? Now, you remember our current MVP, of course, which is Barry Bernardi, the dead mechanic from Halloween, whose picture is just a field, effectively. And I'm about to text you, DL. Now, this is the challenge of this week. You're going to get that through on text in just a moment. This is Gary Martin, who is just effectively an additional voice. Now, tell our listeners what is going on in this Joofy IMDb picture.
I don't even know what to say. This is obviously a screen grab of something he's been in, right? He's given.
You say that. I don't know. This looks like a picture taken specifically in a moment.
Well, it has a thumbnail, cute little buggers. So I'm assuming it must be like a movie or something. But he's
holding a toaster.
Yeah, a quite large toaster, to be fair.
A very definitely giant bread toaster.
Yeah, that's like the what's that? The Little Toaster Goes to Mars. Is that a movie that I'm making up? The Brave Little Toaster. Have you heard of the Brave Little Toaster?
Real. I've never heard of the Brave Little Toaster.
That is something I watched as a kid. Anyway, it's a big toaster. It's like the Brave Little Toaster size. Anyway, he's got his
got a wild shirt. Yeah,
he's got his tropical shirt on that needs both a button below and a button above. It's only got like 2 buttons on.
He needs something.
Yeah, it's like a weird, like he hasn't like done like the sexy show my chest hair look. He's done that plus show my belly button look. Like he's showing a lot of
too much belly button, I think, personally, in this picture.
Yes, and aviators with the big peace sign up for the world. This is
so. The
really
question
odd.
is, DL, is this a joofier IMDb picture than Barry Bernardi?
I mean, Barry Bernardi's literally a bush.
It's not his belly, but his face in. Like when you look at it on IMDb.
I don't know that I can like dethrone him yet. Like, he's literally got strands of wheat as his IMDb picture.
Brilliant. So we're sticking with the current MVP then?
I think so. Yeah.
Oh, I love it. I love it.
I'm
going to keep throwing them at you until we finally find one that's going to dethrone Barry. I might bring our Lord and Savior Ray Buchanan back just to see if we can.
We need like a fence maybe or something. That might.
Talk to me about this movie then, mate. What happens in this?
I mean, essentially, it's just like a whole story about a rebellion within the kingdom, like a lesser vassal lord, rising up and kind of, wanting more and challenging the established king of Rohirrim.
Yeah.
And his family.
Yeah, it's pretty straightforward.
Yeah, there's not much else to it. And it's engaging and intriguing. And as I was watching it, I was mostly enjoying it. There were definitely times where I got a bit bored. And, it didn't help that I was being jostled about like a fucking, chopped salad with the dressing being. Yeah. But
you're on a roller coaster.
My main complaint would be it's cool enough, but we've kind of heard this story before, like not necessarily in Lord of the Rings, just like a million times. Like,
yeah.
And there's nothing really Lord of the Ringsy about it.
Yeah, both. I would also say that it literally halfway through just takes a left turn into being the Two Towers. That's my main complaint for this. Like, that is the film. And I'm like, well, I've seen this and I've seen it done significantly better. So I don't know.
Exactly.
Like, don't get me wrong. Okay, I'm going to say this right up top. I'm happy this exists. I'm happy they're trying different stuff. They went for a really big swing with this. They went deep into anime. They brought in a director who is, seasoned in anime. Happy it exists. Does it need to? I'm not sure.
No, not really. Like, I don't think so. It didn't. Here's what it didn't do. It could, like, this could be from any world, given the themes that it has in the story. It doesn't even have to be Lord of the Rings. Like, I would have liked it to add something, some new take or some new, like, interesting, like, perspective on the lore that we know and love about the movies and the books. And that doesn't mean it's bad that it doesn't, but it just doesn't mean it's good. Like, when you think about the show that they've made, like, strong appreciation for the lore, and also adds things that like inform the movies and like the show and the book in cool ways, like in ways that are like, like it fills out the backstory of other characters. Like, this is just like nobody in this is in anything. It doesn't deal with any of the stuff that might be happening at this time other than this little horse lord area. Like, even just Gondor, it didn't even like engage me with Gondor, which is like where I thought it might go.
I mean, I still enjoy, like, and again, like, I 100% agree with you. I think that's absolutely I think that's absolutely right. I just think it is nice to see different stories outside of the ring as well. Like 100%, it does need some way of looping back in, pushing the story forward somehow, or just expanding in a way that's interesting. But you're right. Like, I don't think it necessarily does that.
I was going to be like, I don't even need the ring. Like, I was actually intrigued to see if they're going to, like, because you get that elephant early on or whatever.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, maybe
Oliphant.
they'll bring up those other people that ended up siding with, like, Sauron, and we'll get, like, insight into
I thought that
world.
too.
And no, you don't get that.
What was that? The Southern Men or the Wild Men, or whatever they were called? Like, I would love to have seen them in this.
I don't actually remember. No, but, like, we didn't get it. I was like, maybe we'll get, like, some side thing about, like, you know, like how the Westfold fell, and like we've heard about that in, like, literally in the movie, like, well, what's going on when the Westfold fell? I was like, maybe we'll hear about that.
That's what I wanted to watch.
Did not hear about it. I was like, maybe we'll even see, like, Boromir's grandpa or something.
Oh, that would have been fun.
You know, the rising threat in the north, in Mordor, and, like, how it's trying. Like, we just didn't get any of that.
You could have brought an older Sean Bean back to voice that character. I don't know if we mentioned this up top, but we're going to be doing non-spoilers and spoilers. I don't think there's a huge amount to spoil in this movie, but the basic plot of the film is that we follow Hera, who is a princess of Rohan, as DL says. She's a bit of a free spirit, and it's sort of her journey into being thrust into being an unwilling leader after her father, who's voiced by Brian Cox, who we're going to talk about, because I did like that performance, but there were times I wasn't 100% on board with it. Effectively kills Freka, who is the father of Wolf. All these names are wild, by the way. And a Dunlending lord, effectively. So he's like what was the word you used? He's like a sublord of Rohan.
He's like a vassal of...
a vassal, that's the perfect word of Rohan. And Wolf swears vengeance. Now, he's such a petty little, bitch.
That's honestly the biggest problem with this movie. He starts with, like, you start, like, thinking, oh, it's going to be an interesting story. They're kids. And it just, like, literally never went anywhere. He's just like a emo fucking loser.
Well, he doesn't have, his motivations suck. It's like, oh, you killed my dad, who was wrong in the first place.
Yeah, there's no motivation.
Right.
And even if his dad wasn't wrong, he challenged him. Like, that's part of the game, bro. Like, don't play the game. Get out of the kitchen if you don't like the heat, bro. Like,
100%. If he walks up behind him and he sucker punches him in the back of the head, man goes down and dies, you go like, oh yeah, I get it. But no, the guy literally stands up to him and goes, let's fight.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, what? Like, what's happening here? I didn't king punch your dad.
There wasn't much to go off of for the villain. It was kind of unfortunate.
Not at all. I think that was a real weakness of the movie.
You know what it was? That was very 90s cartoony.
Yeah, it really was.
Like the like the episode of the week, this villain, not a lot of backstory, kind of just a dick. Like,
well, all right, look, so the thing that I thought you would be really interested in going into this would be the lore that this is involved in. And what I was really sort of hoping to see was, like we were talking about before, expanding on that, expanding on the world, giving us more. Effectively, have you done any research on the lore this is based on?
No, but it's probably the line of kings that, you know, from Numenor that eventually become Rohirrim. I know enough about it that I feel like I know some, yeah.
Well, look, it expands on some quite, let's say, unique lore, right? So it's based on, obviously, the appendices of The Lord of the Rings, specifically the House of Eorl. Yeah. E-O-R-L. Errol?
And Helm.
I'm just going to call him Errol the Eagle. That's what I'll call him. So it focuses on, obviously, King Hammer, who ends up having... Sorry, King Helm Hammerhand. God, I guess one of these right at some point. Legendary rule of Rohan. It includes the Long Winter and the Siege of Helm's Deep, later to be named after Helm himself. Helm's depicted as, in the appendices specifically, as a mythical larger-than-life figure. But you don't... The interesting thing is, in those appendices, there is no mention of Hera. His daughter isn't part of that. It is all about this one dude who's larger than life. It does expand on the story, which I like. It gives some new, different characters, gives them some agency. So in terms of the lore, it's not a lot dissimilar to like the Gollum movie that's coming out or any of the other stuff we've got, which is based around a very small niche section of appendices that they've kind of got free reign with. And I think, like you were saying before, I don't think it does enough to really warrant needing as a full movie.
To be fair, Hera, like, Tolkien doesn't have a lot of women in his books.
Yeah.
or his appendixes. Like nobody, everybody has a wife, but they're never named. So it's like, I think it's cool that they added her, and that's like awesome. But to your point around, hey, it's just like this one little bit, and you don't think they expand. I agree, and I think that like literally the entire Lord of the Rings series that we're watching now on Amazon is pretty much made off of like literally one paragraph from the text, and they're doing a great job with it.
Right,
like, right. So like, I guess that I just think that this didn't have as much of that. To your point, I agree with you there.
Yeah,
and it doesn't have as much of a place because of it.
Sure, but I guess like in a sort of converse sense, what really worked in this for me was like the smaller stakes of it. Like not every adaptation of anything needs to be universal, world ending, or the end of our times. And it was kind of nice to just see like a small contained story.
Yes, I just wish that there was like more. I don't know. It was very one dimensional. It was like there wasn't a lot. I don't need it to be like, oh, the war, the fight for Middle Earth, but it would be nice to see a more intricate plot. I tend to over rotate on that. So
well, you flip both ways pretty easily. But my question to you is going to be like, did this do anything for your experience of the movies or the TV show? Did this do anything to heighten it, or was it just an individual thing?
It didn't do much. I'll say that like
right.
The Rohirrim stuff was kind of, I guess it's like cool to know that they were like, there was a bit of stuff where you could tell they're like competing with Gondor, and I would have liked to, I think that's what I wanted to see more of, because there's like like that's the stuff that like, oh, we're left wondering whatever happened. Like they were allies and we're left wondering like why that ended and why that broke and why it wasn't as strong. We see that in the movies. And I didn't get, I got like a couple of mentions of like, oh, he's too prideful to go ask for help, but I didn't get much beyond that, and I was hoping for more.
Yeah. And that's a big part of the movies that would have been nice to have, understood a bit more of, even if it wasn't specifically these guys.
It seemed like an obvious place.
Right. It seemed like a big win there, but I've clearly not just rolled into that for some reason.
And then, to your point, the Helm's Deep thing was just like Helm's Deep, like 0.5. Well, poor man's hell for Helm's Deep.
I was going to say, it's more like the beta version of Helm's Deep, right?
Yeah.
Still working on this, guys. Full releases soon. GAs soon.
Why didn't they just throw him a rope, dude?
Like, anything.
Like what?
Anything. Well, we'll talk about that more when we get to spoilers. I reckon. I tell you what didn't work for me in this was, and I really like Miranda Otto, but the constant like stopping and going to narration. I felt like it took away some of the subtext at times. I was like, I get this is happening, and I can just see it from the visuals. You don't need to explain to me that it's winter. Do you know what I mean? Love her. She was great in the original films. Love that they brought her back for this. It really slowed the pacing down for me. The pacing of the film, though it was, I don't know, I couldn't even tell you how long it was set over. Like, what time period is this? What time period are we watching?
I think it's not long. I mean, like, well, to be fair, from the start to finish, it is longer because he like goes away, hides for years.
It's almost like 6 months or something. Like, it's not.
I think it's longer than that.
Yeah. As part of this, after when Freka dies, he's not murdered. He dies in a fight that he willingly entered. His son Wolf goes into hiding effectively to find his army and find his way back to try and right.
He's been banished.
Quotation mark wrong. Yeah, to right the wrong that's been done against him, and that makes it seem like that's maybe a couple of years.
Yeah, a lot of horse jerky he was eating over that time.
I thought you said jerky.
In the wild, horse jerkin as well. Oh, in the wild woods, in the wildlands.
The wildlands.
Not much to eat outside, but
they're the best
jerky.
Lands. These wildlands. It was the pacing was a bit weird for me. I didn't know how long anything was happening for, because it's anime. They all look the same. Like there was no progression of what they looked like. No one grew a beard. You just grow a beard or something. Do you know what I mean? Not hair, obviously, but
yeah. Well, that would have been cool too.
I mean, maybe Wolf was a bit of a maybe Wolf was a bit of a twink. Maybe he couldn't grow a beard. Maybe he just liked his little.
Well, the
fancy
Wolf had
mustache.
like a little weird little mustache that kind of looked like prepubescent.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
You know what I mean?
He was such a book Jon Snow character.
Yeah, dude, he was such a beta Jon Snow. We should what we should say
big time
is I liked the idea of like the brothers being super different. We didn't even get much time with them. Like I was
were
super
one of the best parts to me.
Yeah, like by like how he was like playing his little harpy thing, and then like you just don't see him again till the end. Yeah,
whose names I've totally forgotten, which is really bad. They're probably very similar to Hera, to be honest with you. It'll be like Heka and Hela or something. They were great. They were, and it was interesting because one was, Helm's firstborn son. Yeah, there you go.
And Heleth.
Oh, I was very close. I got one of them most of the way there. It's like the firstborn son and the secondborn son. It's like how they, how they're different, how they act differently, and how one is, a big, leader of the armies. And I feel like you were just that could have been a great plot to this, or at least have Hera more integrated with those two because they were the most interesting part of this.
Yeah, for sure. What about the art style?
I was going to ask you about that. What did you think of New Zealand portrayed through anime rather than being actually in New Zealand?
That's a good point. I didn't think about it that way.
Right?
I thought it was well drawn.
I really liked it. I think they did a good job. It was interesting. Tell me what you thought about this. It was interesting that they started with a shot of New Zealand and then they pulled back. I mean, they kind of do it in the trailer. In fact, the trailer shows this whole fucking movie. If you want to know what
they did do that, right?
Just watch the trailer.
I thought I was going crazy.
Right.
I was like, that looks real.
I went back and watched it later and I was like, so that's just the whole film. So the film pulls out from real New Zealand. And I've got to say, like, New Zealand is such a huge part of those first films. It kind of lost a bit of something doing that, not having it live action. Now, again, love went for a big swing with this. Love they did something different, but it could just be anything. Like, New Zealand in those films is just, it's beautiful. It's almost like an extra character. I'm constantly looking in the background being like, that's a fucking cool mountain. Oh, that's a cool tree. You know what I mean? That's one of my things. It's a cool tree. But in this, I'd be a tree. It could literally just be anything. Birch. I'm a birch guy. Always been a birch guy. Love a birch tree.
Nice little
or an oak tree. The birch is the best tree. It's the best. The better than all the other trees. But yeah, so like putting it in 2D and losing a bit of the vibrance of New Zealand, for me, lost a bit of the spectacle.
Okay. Yeah, I agree. I could see that. You don't get your like pine trees.
No,
the same way.
You're really helping Matt with the edit here this week, aren't you? You're like, pine trees.
No, look, I agree, dude. Look, it's stripped down. Look, it was enjoyable. It's just hard, Peter Jackson was just so good. And honestly, the show is just so good that, like, for me at least, I know that's a divisive topic, and I don't think it should be, but
I like the show.
It's just really hard to beat those two things. Like,
totally,
it's better than the Hobbit movies.
Well, I mean, right. There's a good.
It's better than the third Hobbit movie for sure. Definitely,
it's better than all the Hobbit movies.
There's like the highs of the Hobbit movies, though. I think are higher than this. There's no high than this that I'm like, oh wow, you know what I mean?
I can't watch those Hobbit movies. They just hurt my eyes.
You don't even
they make me feel sick.
The misty mountain.
No.
Rose.
You know what they make me feel like? You know when you were getting like car sick on your seat in this cinema? That's what those movies make me feel like.
Nah, I think like the best part of the first movie is that song, and then it's over, and that's like 20 minutes in, and the rest sucks.
That's the whole film done.
Yeah, like, but my point is like the high of that movie is that song, and I'd say that beats the highs of this. But overall, to your point, yes,
I quite like and we'll talk about it more in spoilers. The Helm Hammerhand goes psycho scene. That was a pretty cool moment in this film. I would have said
cool, also dumb, but cool,
unnecessary,
but also like in line with his character, like pride, like just like I'm gonna fuck.
Pride comes before the fall. It certainly does.
Yeah.
The only other thing I'd say about sort of the sort of world building elements of this is it did, like we sort of talk about Game of Thrones a lot here. It pulled a lot from the Thronesian stuff. It almost had a bit of Battle of the Bastards about it, sort of that not control. That's the wrong word. That contained episode of that TV show. I felt in the way, Jon and Sansa are trying to rally the other houses to their cause to help, and some of them are actually, going behind their backs and siding with the bad guys. It felt a lot like they pulled a lot from that episode of the show.
Yeah, that part, and then also like, well, actually, I guess like no one's really questioning Bolton, but something about like the other military guy, like his general being like, "You're fucking up the whole time." Like, that was reminiscent of some other story that I can't think of. Like, it's
plenty of
tropey.
Stories.
Yeah.
I tell you what I did like in this. I really liked some northern accents. There were some brilliant northerners in this.
That wasn't the main brilliant northerner, the who was it? Who is that voice that you just like? Somebody, one of the main characters is super northern.
Well, there's a couple. So Frecker, who is Wolf's dad, who's played by Sean Dooley, had the best northern accent. I actually think it's probably more Lancashire than Yorkshire, but it is fabulous. And I was watching it and I was like, he sounds like someone I really recognize. And I thought it was a different actor, but nah, he's someone I've never heard of before, Sean Dooley. And he was great. In fact, Wolf himself, little bitch as he was, actually had a pretty good northern accent. So I kind of enjoyed that. There's a lot of good northerners going on here.
Luca Pascalino, which is kind of doesn't sound like you would be.
Not at all. Not at all.
English,
Which
so,
is that's the
yeah.
Wolf actor, right? I tell you what was interesting though. The Brian Cox character, so Helm Hammerhand, was an interesting voice casting choice because there are times when I was like, God damn, this is a world weary warrior king. That's hard to say 3 times fast.
World weary warrior king. Yeah.
World weary warrior king. There's times when you're like, oh my God, he's killing this. And then you're like, actually, he doesn't sound anything like anyone around him. He doesn't have that northern twang to him. So like he half the time I loved that and half the time I was like, why is this Brian Cox? You know what I mean?
Yeah, dude. I mean,
is this Succession?
I haven't even seen Succession, so like I can't really comment on it, but he's kind of
another show I've watched peripherally with a partner.
But it's apparently really good. He's an iconic character, so you'd understand like why.
Yeah, great choice. Really good choice. I mean, considering the rest of the cast effectively was unknowns in quotation marks. Like I feel like they've pulled out all the stops to get Brian in there. But did you like him as that character?
Yeah, I was fine with it. It didn't take me away from it. Yeah.
What do you think of Gaia Wise as Hera?
She was good. It's such a like repeat story from ones I've heard before that like, she didn't do anything bad.
Yeah.
She didn't annoy me.
I thought she was good. Bit of a Mary Sue at times.
Yeah.
And it was a bit like her refusal. The whole thing really kicks off because of her refusal to become Wolf's wife, take his hand in marriage. And it's a bit like, I've seen this before.
Yeah. I think that that storyline is just like tired, but it is the one. I mean, it is the one that you do in medieval times because it was what
Very true. Very true. Liked her as a bit of a free spirit as well. Let's quickly talk about the action before we move on. Then, I tell you what, we haven't really talked that much about the animation in this, but there are times when it got a bit like choppy. It didn't always flow for me. I felt like there were times when it would like almost freeze a little bit during action scenes.
Gail kept saying, like, why aren't their voices in sync with their mouths? And I was like,
interesting.
I don't know if that's like isn't that just the way it always is with animated shit, though?
Yeah, I guess it depends. I think if it's made for a Japanese audience, maybe a little bit, but this was made for a Western audience, so
I don't know. Yeah, I enjoyed the art direction. I didn't notice much in the the battles I actually like thought were fun, to be honest.
Okay.
I was much more entertained. It was choppy, but I think it was like by design.
Okay.
But I liked the battles. Those were probably one of my more favorite parts, to be fair.
I quite like the slow build of them building the tower to like get into Helm's Deep. That was pretty fun.
I like that. But I was also like, surely if you just dropped it like that, it would just break in half on land.
Right. It looked pretty flimsy, didn't it? I was like, dude, that's
like I think that would just literally snap it. Like the pressure of the momentum hitting it would just like snap it like that.
I don't know if that's a real thing. I don't know. I don't know enough about siege warfare.
Physics?
Yeah, physics.
I know one thing. I know I wouldn't want to be the drummer on top like that.
I was going to say the same thing.
That's one thing I for sure know.
Christ, that guy was dead. You got to be ready to be smushed if you're that guy, right? Like he ain't walking away from that.
Gail was like, what? Oh, he has the best job. And then as it started to progress, I was like, I don't know. He might have the worst job.
Maybe not. Like, I think the action was some of the better parts for me. I quite like the inclusion of the giant eagles as well. That was a nice callback to the original movies. That
scene where she climbs up was kind of cool. I didn't mind
the scene where she the chase at the beginning with a sort of semi-beginning with the Oliphant and it's gone rabid and it's chasing her through the forest. That was pretty cool.
And then there's like the octopus or whatever.
Yeah, I didn't mind that.
What is that thing? Yeah, it was cool.
It's a very Tolkien looking thing.
Yeah, I like that it
feel
has like the little tree to fake you out. It's kind of cool.
Yes, and she throws a spear at it. The action's
Yeah.
pretty good. I enjoyed the action in this in general. Do you have anything else to say, non-spoils, before I move on to tones and themes?
No, I think we've
I think we've saturated this.
Talked
Just
it
tell me
through.
your tones and themes then. What do you got?
independence, hubris comes before the fall,
Yeah, legacy,
legacy,
finding your own path, all of the things that come with this type of story.
emo.
Emo
As a
versions of
genre.
better characters.
Yeah, emo as a genre personified.
It's back. It's
Yeah.
back, baby. Go on then. What are your 3 best and 3 worst for this?
Art direction. I
Yep,
liked actually
got
the way the art. I liked the way the orcs, how as little as they were in it, were
Right.
portrayed.
I like them
I
too.
enjoyed their little brief stint.
Not very dissimilar to the 1978 version we watched for the podcast many moons ago. Plug for
Yeah.
that episode.
I can't remember what they looked like, to be honest.
But like this.
Okay.
Weird.
The Helm's Deep, not the battle, but like the sequences where they were like literally just stuck there, and it was like the cold, quiet, like moody
The
sequences.
realness of it. Yeah, I like that.
I
too.
liked that. I actually liked that. That was like a side of Helm's Deep you didn't really see as much, obviously.
And siege warfare in general. That's pretty brutal.
I like that perspective. Yeah, that was cool.
Yeah.
How about you?
Adding on from what you said, obviously, I quite enjoyed the animation too. I liked that it was a big swing. I like that it's trying something very different in this regularly very contained world. Just showcasing different elements outside of purely just talking about the One Ring, Like the One Ring the rings get a mention, but it's not, it's not like they're a big
like
part
barely.
of this. Right.
Barely
The auction we were
mention.
talking about a minute ago,
Yeah.
which we'll come back to I think we'll come back to when we get to maybe a bit of trivia, true or false, DL. Do you have any worsts other than getting splashed in the face by water every 15 seconds?
Well, I turned it off. So
Until Gail turned it back up.
yeah, it was more the air things like with the fucking
Ooh.
the arrows like in the back of your head all the time. Air shots.
Right,
oh
right.
god.
Not when the big eagles were blowing wind. Did you get like a big gust of wind in the face?
Yeah, they did that stuff too. I mean, there was pretty consistent. I think my worst it's not like a super original story. We talked about that.
Yeah. Agreed.
It's not immensely additive to like prior work.
That's one of mine. Yeah, I got that.
And then the villain is just pretty basic. Basic
100%.
bitch.
100%. I agree. Just to add to that, I had narration. I don't like narration, especially when it doesn't add anything. I'm like, if I can get this from subtext, show me it that way. You know what I mean? Like I don't
Show me
need
in
this.
the subtext. Yeah.
Right. And I guess it's more just around the things you were talking to. Like it's not adding to the Lord of the Rings mythology. It's not. I'm not getting out of this that's going to heighten my experience of the show or the movies. It's almost like a dual-edged sword. Part of me wants to see these contained stories. Part of me also feels like it has to have some relevance,
Yeah. It has to have, it has relevance, but it's just like it has more irrelevance than relevance.
Right. It has to weigh
Like-
those scales a little bit more.
Yeah, like it's relevant in that it's set in Rohan. It's irrelevant in that like it has literally no impact whatsoever
On anything.
or tangential informativeness to anything outside of this
Totally.
little weird scope. Like
100%.
Yeah. Anyway,
All right. Well, let's talk a little bit about the critical reception then. Can you firstly
shall we?
guess for me the current IMDb score for this?
I would expect Lord of the Rings fans to be a bit harsh, but also it's like well made, so it's like maybe they'll just like clamber at anything. 6.5.
Ooh, it's 6.7. Like where your head's at with that.
Okay, that's good.
Good. It's not too bad. It's not bad. It's not great.
Well, I wonder what the Hobbit ones are. Probably like low 6s.
Well, you guess for me then what the Rotten Tomatoes score is, and I will look them up for you in the background.
Rotten Tomatoes would be like 78.
Ooh, Rotten Tomatoes is
Higher?
52.
It'd be higher. 52.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Oh.
People did not like it.
Well, just looking very quickly in the background, The Hobbit, the first Hobbit, The Unexpected Journey one is 7.8 on IMDb. So, I mean,
Wow.
the audience for this was probably a lot smaller, to be quite perfectly honest with you. Like, let's be honest, like it is an animated movie, and I don't imagine everyone would want to
And the
see
people
this.
that are gonna go tune in are like diehards, and they generally don't like anything.
Right.
So
Yeah. Okay, then. So, can you guess for me then the current letterbox score for this, which is always 3.6, but never 3.6?
2.8.
It's 3.2. So, I mean,
Oh, wow.
evening it out a little bit. I'm just looking in the background
day.
as well. The Decimation of Smaug, which I think is the second one, has got a 7.8 on IMDb.
That's the best one.
That's 7.8 on IMDb. And the last one, The Battle of the Five Armies, has a 7.4. So
That one's dreadful.
This doesn't really stand up to those other ones. And I guess that leads us nicely into our rating system, which is, as always, is this better or worse than most average movie we know, which at present is Aquaman 2018. DL, what do you think? This is a tough one.
Yeah, I think just because it's so refreshingly
different.
I'm gonna contradict everything I said. It is a familiar story, but it's like a very different venue. Like I haven't watched a lot of anime, so for me, I'm gonna say it's better because it was it was fresher for me. But
love that for you. Love that for you. I would probably say it's better, but it's not. I think 52 on Rotten Tomatoes is pretty. Yeah, I feel like that's really hitting home for me. It's not doing anything new, but at the same time, I kind of like being in this world again. Which is, I don't know. It's fine. It's fine.
That's fair.
It's close to an Aquaman, let's say that much. Let's do a couple of quick bits of spoilers then before we wrap up. So basically Hera becomes the queen. Well, no, sorry. She becomes the leader of Rohan for Helm, as Helm goes. So Helm gets struck by a bunch of arrows after being deceived by Wolf, who for at least 10 minutes of this film is a warfront mastermind. None of the rest of it
devolves.
He's a complete fucking idiot. They retreat to Helm's Deep, which is called something different in this, and becomes Helm's Deep. And then Helm becomes like this ghoul. Like, what the fuck is that about?
Well, he wasn't actually. They just said he was.
So he was fine. He was just He was just taking a lot of drugs.
I think he just went a bit cray cray.
Right, and he was murdering a lot of people.
Yeah,
that just felt strange. I mean, you never hear anything about ways in and out of Helm's Deep in any of the texts. From what I've read, he manages to find a way out, which no one else.
It was a little sneaky. I liked it.
Sneaky.
I like the little weird secret trap. Once you go through, you can't go out the other way door. I thought it was cool. Personally.
Okay, I feel like there's got to be a way through that. You just break it down, surely.
I mean, he can literally break off the horn of this massive fucking troll. So
that's right. I think I really like the last stand of him though. Helm's last stand is awesome in this. Effectively, what happens is Hera comes out and meets her father. They fight off a bunch of these wild men for a little while before chasing back to go back into Helm's Deep to be stranded there. And then Helm effectively freezes to death while fighting off these wild men. I quite like that. I thought it was a good ending for him because you didn't want to see him die. He was too strong to be killed in battle. It was an interesting way to end that character's life.
I agree, and I liked the words they used. It was he even to the end remained unbent or something, unbroken.
Right. Yeah. Unbent, unbroken, unbound, just like that Game of Thrones episode, which we don't talk
Whatever
about.
It was.
Yeah, and then Hera becomes this reluctant leader. She is trying to save her people. At the same time, she needs help to do that. I like the way the climb you were talking about, the climb when she goes up to talk to the eagles. I found that really fascinating.
Yeah, that was pretty cool.
Again, a Game of Thrones-esque thing.
And the eagles felt actually quite intimidating when viewed in the scope of her size.
They were giant. Yeah, they were awesome.
Yes. For some reason, they never felt intimidating to me in the actual movies.
No, because they're barely in it. Well, I was saying that they do take down some of the Nazgul, don't they?
No, they do at the very end.
Yeah, they wait though. They keep you waiting.
They just didn't feel very intimidating. It just felt like a big bird.
That's true. I guess the ending of this then is this is just the ending, effectively, of the Two Towers. So Hera sends all of the peoples deeper into the mines to get away from Helm's Deep. She goes out, and it's interesting because she goes out to face Old Mate Wolf on her own. I quite like that. That was a nice bit of symbolism for her. She was a lone wolf. She stood apart on her own.
Couldn't even beat her, dude. He's such a
he was
terrible.
Such a fucking useless character. I kind of like that. I kind of like the idea that she stood for her rights. The armor, her father's armor, she sent to her cousin who wore it and scared all the wild men away.
Yeah,
it was I felt in terms of that. I think the ending was probably my favorite bit of the film. I think not because it was finishing, not because it was finally over. No, I feel like there was it was a nice culmination of the story, and I think they used a lot of the plot elements well to build an ending which felt satisfying.
I think it was a story was it had an arc.
Yeah, well constructed, well crafted. but as you say, nothing out of the ordinary. What did you think of the interesting little Gandalf and Saruman references?
I mean, they just kind of threw Isengard in at the beginning and at the end.
Right.
They're like, oh, like he took over Isengard. How did and I didn't understand why that was.
Oh my god!
Like, why was that a big deal? Like, yeah, sure, good real estate. If
right,
if no one's there, like, yeah, it's like, why not? It's yeah, like, but like that would have been interesting. Like, oh no, like there's some sus shit going on over there. Like, help me understand. And then the Gandalf stuff was like, because they hadn't done anything like that up to that point. I was like, why are you doing it now?
Mm.
It didn't really.
They make a reference at the end that Hera doesn't want to take the throne. She doesn't want to be effectively queen of Rohan. She goes away to meet Gandalf. It
would have been cooler that like there's Gandalf's like she has an interaction with him like a casual one through the story that like where he's like does something that influences her and informs her and gives her more confidence in herself as a woman in this man. That would have been cool because that's in character for Gandalf. And then it's not just a throw in, and we get a little.
It did feel like a throw-in.
Like something more than that.
And the Christopher Lee cameo was interesting as well because he effectively swore allegiance to Rohan in this.
Yes, true.
And that obviously doesn't follow through when you get to the movies. So
no, he does the opposite.
Interestingly, I was very quite the opposite. I wanted to find out how they'd done that voice acting part because it's not dialogue from the movies. So I was like, is this some dodgy AI recreation of his voice?
But, you reckon?
But apparently it's not. So I actually looked into this. What apparently happened is obviously Lee passed away in 2015. It's actually archival recordings of Lee, stuff they just didn't use in the films. And so the screenwriters asked, his widow, who also has passed away, if, they could use his voice in this. And she said, absolutely, it's what Chris would have wanted. So I like that, they didn't go an AI route for this. I know a lot of people are very upset about the idea of AI being used in films for this exact reason. So it's good they didn't, press those buttons.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't have cared if it was like the 4 lines where he just said,
it was such it's such a short amount of dialogue.
Really would not have done much for me either way.
To me, I'm like, I don't mind, but I know in the business, it's a pretty big sticky point right now. So do you have anything else to add before we move on to a bit of trivia, true or falsio?
No, I think I'm good, man.
Nice. Good. Let's do this. DL, trivia true, trivia false. You know at least one of these. This is the 6th animated adaptation of J.R.R. Tolkien's Middle Earth. Is that true or is that false?
6th animated?
Yes.
6 seems high. There's at least 2.
There are. There are at least 2. There's at least 1, I can tell you that.
And then there's probably some weird shit. I think that's too much. I'm going to say no.
It actually is. So there are 6 versions of different parts of the Middle-earthian lore. So in 1966, they did an adaptation of The Hobbit, which apparently was just solely so a team could preserve the rights. In 1977, they did another TV adaptation of The Hobbit as well. There's obviously the 1978 version that we've talked about, the Ralph Bakshi. Go back and check out that episode. It's fucking weird. They did a 1980 follow-up, Return of the King. It's a TV production adaptation. And then in 1991, there is an unfinished Soviet production of The Hobbit, which I have no idea what that means. I really want to see that. I definitely want to see that film. It's unfinished though. So I wonder if there's any footage out there you can watch.
Fair enough. Next.
Brilliant. And we move on. Trivia.
No, I just I don't know. I would definitely watch it. I mean, but I don't think we have a.
Maybe we do an episode one time, or we do like a little bonus episode. Trivia true, trivia false. DL. The actors who played Merry and Pippin actually returned for this movie. Is that true or is that false?
I think it's false. I think Mary did. Mary did.
It's true. Billy Boyd and Dominic Monaghan, who played Merry and Pippin in the Lord of the Rings trilogy, were the 2 orcs we talked about very briefly. They voiced both those orcs.
Makes sense.
I kind of like that. Trivia true, trivia false. There's actually, DL, a mistake in this movie. When Hera, at the end of the film, goes off to meet Gandalf, she shows what looks like a glyph. But that's actually the glyph of Saruman. Is that true or is that false?
False.
It is false. Of course, big nerds would notice these types of things. So the letter that Hera shows her friend who's coming on the journey with us has a rune or a glyph on it. and it's the same one that Gandalf engraves on Bilbo Baggins' door in The Hobbit: An Unexpected Journey. I turned that film off, so I don't know if that's true, but I believe that's what IMDb says, so I believe it to be true. Ultimately, I enjoyed this film. It's better than Aquaman. I don't know if it needs to exist, but we talked about it and we watched it, so you don't have to.
There you go. Much appreciated, Tommy. We did a
welcome.
Great deed for everyone.
I feel like there's a few movies we've done like that this year.
Yeah. I'm excited for a good one. When does that vampire movie come out?
It's soon. It's like January 1st, so we'll be doing that pretty much when we get back for the new year, if you're up for that.
Perfect.
Nosferatu. I love a good vampire movie. I'm so excited for that.
I'm gonna watch the Witch movie ahead of that too.
Oh, that's a good idea, actually.
Anyway,
The Witch. Yeah, guys, thank you for sticking with it. We really do appreciate it when you do get all the way to this part of the show. As always, thank you to DL for sticking with it too. You know I like to ramble. This could be our last episode for the year. We're not sure. We're going to try and fit in a best and worst episode before the end of the year. We're not sure yet. So if we don't come back until the new year with Nosferatu, sorry, we're busy people. We're going to try. We appreciate you all for sticking with it all year, though. We've had some fantastic numbers this year. Please recommend this to a friend if you know someone who likes geeky stuff. DL, do you want to wrap up the show, my guy?
You know I do. A big thank you to Matthew Bliss for editing and mastering this week's episode. If you liked it, give it a review. Give us a 5-star review. Pass the pod. Send us some feedback. thepodcastassemble@gmail.com or podcastassemble on Instagram.
Let DL know what books you recommend.
Yeah, I really am looking for to be fair, maybe I hated on Tom Clancy. It's famous for a reason, but I guess I'm not looking for your typical just run of the mill. Hey, I only ever read this genre type book. I'm looking for one that kind of transcends the genre.
Yep.
I'm sure there's some out there. If you'd like to, hear us more or basically have podcasts of your own edited really well, you should talk to Matt. He's the man this episode for sure. He's you can reach him at mbpod.com or business@mbpod.com via email to find out more about his podcasting services. If you want to hear his work, listen to Coffee with the Podcaster. Short thought pieces on topics of podcasting shared over a cup of joe.
Who have you become today? Who's this? Who's this character?
I don't know.
It's a bit like Christopher Walken. I'm not sure where your head's at right now.
I was a bit of Christopher Walken. I can't do Christopher Walken.
He put the watch in his ass.
Yeah, and that's really all I got. So
appreciate you guys. Thank you so much for sticking with it. And
we'll end on that. He put the watch in his ass.
Isn't that how we always end?
Yeah, typically. That's how I like. That's how I like to
sign
end.
Off.
That is the title of your sex tape.
Tally ho, put the watch in your ass.
Later, Gators.